All right, let's dive right into something that is literally going to change how you drive. We are looking at a monumental shift in how we power our entire transportation sector, all built on a massive government roadmap for ethanol blending that takes us straight through to 2025. Now, you might have heard whispers about ethanol at the local gas station, or maybe caught a headline or two, but today we're going to break down exactly what this policy is, why it's an absolute national imperative, and crucially, how it directly affects that car or bike sitting in your driveway right now. To understand why this massive shift is happening right this second, we have to start with a truly staggering number. India currently imports 85% of its oil requirement. Just let that sink in for a moment. That heavy reliance cost the country an immense $551 billion in 2020 alone, just to bring in 185 million metric tons of petroleum. And when you realize that about 98% of the fuel requirement in the road transportation sector is met by these imported fossil fuels, you quickly see how vulnerable this makes the economy. Any sudden spike in global crude oil prices sends immediate shockwaves through the domestic market. So we're not just talking about an economic drain of sending billions overseas. This is a massive, absolutely critical issue of energy security. So here is our roadmap for today. We'll be looking at the import problem, the ethanol solution, global ethanol practices, the impact on your vehicle, and finally, the 2025 roadmap. Let's start with part 1, the import problem and how we go about breaking this fossil fuel habit. The upside to breaking this habit is frankly massive. A successful transition to blended fuels can save the country a whopping $4 billion. That's about 30,000 crore rupees every single year. Think about the scale of that. Instead of just shipping that capital overseas to buy crude oil, a homegrown biofuel industry channels all that money directly back into the domestic economy. It heavily promotes the Make in India initiative, creates a huge surge in rural employment, and crucially, it really helps double farmers' incomes. We are literally turning their agricultural outputs, the actual things that grow in their fields, into highly valuable national energy assets. Moving on to part 2, the ethanol solution, farming our fuel. So, what is E20? It simply means your fuel is 20% ethanol and 80% regular gasoline. That's it, just a blend. Traditionally, ethanol in India was produced mainly from sugarcane molasses, which is a byproduct of the sugar industry. But, to meet these massive new volume targets for an entire nation, the government has expanded the allowed feedstocks. Now, ethanol is also going to be produced from food grains like maize, damaged grains, and even surplus rice held by the Food Corporation of India. It really is a brilliant strategy. We're taking crops that are just sitting in silos and essentially putting them directly into your gas tank, converting massive agricultural surpluses into usable, everyday energy. The ultimate goal of all this is creating a thriving, low-carbon economy that turns those agricultural surpluses into a much greener alternative right at the pump. But it isn't just about using up extra green. Ethanol has natural properties that actually improve fuel quality. It contains fuel-embedded oxygen and has a higher octane number than standard gasoline. Think of it as giving the fuel a cleaner, more efficient, and far more powerful burn inside your engine. And because it burns so completely, it drastically reduces the unburnt, harmful tailpipe emissions that eventually end up hovering in our atmosphere. And the environmental payoff here? It's absolutely huge. We are looking at a staggering 50% drop in carbon monoxide emissions for two-wheelers running on E20 fuel. 50%. For four-wheelers, carbon monoxide drops by a really impressive 30%. On top of that, hydrocarbon emissions, which is the nasty stuff that creates smog, are reduced by 20% across the board for both cars and bikes. So, by shifting to E20, we aren't just saving billions of dollars and helping out farmers, we are actively clearing the air in our increasingly congested cities and directly improving public health. Let's look at part 3, global ethanol practices, a proven strategy. It's important to know that India isn't experimenting in the dark here. Countries like Brazil already mandate up to a 27.5% ethanol blend, showing us that widespread adoption is highly feasible and incredibly successful. In fact, Brazil has actually pioneered flex fuel vehicles that can run on pure hydrous ethanol. That's 100% ethanol. That took their entire transportation sector to an incredible 46% ethanol share overall. The United States and the European Union have also successfully integrated biofuels into their standard infrastructure, with things like the Renewable Fuel Standard and an EU-wide 10% target. The technology to create this fuel, build the engines, and store the blend exists right now, and it is fully proven on a global scale. Now for part 4, impact on your vehicle, driveway economics. Okay, so this is the million-dollar question every driver is asking, right? Will this actually harm my engine? Let's address it completely transparently. If we're completely changing the chemical makeup of our fuel at the local pump, we have to know exactly how our current everyday hardware is going to react to it. Because nobody wants to ruin their car's engine just to save a few bucks or help the environment. So, while vehicles made since 2008 are largely material compatible with an E10 blend, achieving that ambitious E20 target requires newer vehicles to have upgraded elastomers and plastics. We're basically talking about the rubber hoses, gaskets, and seals inside your engine. Ethanol naturally acts kind of like a solvent, and it can slowly degrade standard rubber over time. So, if you were to put E20 in an older vehicle designed only for pure unblended petrol, you could eventually wear down those specific parts. Plus, because ethanol is a high-octane fuel, engines need to be specifically calibrated, adjusting things like the spark timing and compression ratio to avoid engine knocking and actually capture the performance benefits of that E20 blend. Now, full disclosure, ethanol packs a little less energy per drop than pure gasoline. Its heating value is actually about 2/3 that of regular gas. So if your engine isn't specifically tuned for it, an older four-wheeler running E20 might see a 6 to 7% drop in mileage. For a standard two-wheeler, you're looking at a 3 to 4% drop. Even vehicles specifically designed for E10 might lose 1 to 2% efficiency when stepping up to E20. Ultimately, this means you'll likely get slightly fewer kilometers per liter. However, the auto industry is adapting rapidly to this. With the right hardware modifications and precise engine tuning straight from the factory, this loss in fuel efficiency can be almost entirely negated in newer vehicle models. But wait, here's how the government plans to soften that blow to your wallet. The roadmap highly recommends tax incentives at the retail level to make blended fuels noticeably cheaper than regular unblended petrol. The strategy here is actually really simple. By pricing the greener E20 fuel lower at your local pump, the financial savings perfectly offset any slight mileage drops you might experience on your daily commute. The committee even goes a step further, recommending tax incentives for purchasing vehicles that are E20 compatible, making sure that you, the consumer, aren't financially penalized for making an environmentally friendly choice. And finally, Part 5, the 2025 Roadmap, when to expect changes. This whole thing is a carefully orchestrated, phased rollout across agriculture, oil marketing, and automobile manufacturing. It actually started back in April 2022, making E10 available nationwide as a standard baseline protection fuel. Then came the critical phase in April 2023, which introduced actual E20 fuel at the pumps, right alongside vehicles built with those upgraded compatible materials we just talked about. And finally, this all culminates in April 2025, where the industry completes the puzzle by rolling out vehicles with fully E20-tuned engines across India. These engines will offer top-tier performance and maximum efficiency, exclusively optimized for this specific blended fuel. The fuel at your local pump is fundamentally changing, and the vehicles we drive must change right along with it. We are making a monumental, sweeping move away from importing billions of dollars of volatile fossil fuels and moving directly towards a self-reliant, agricultural-based energy grid that actively cleans our air and puts serious money back into our rural economy. The transition is already well underway, so the only question left is, will your next vehicle be ready for the E20 revolution?